So, welcome back to Hope Starts Here, where together as a church, even while we're having to shelter in place, we are learning to see Jesus more clearly. And anytime we do that, we will love him more dearly because he's lovable. And then that will make us want to follow him more nearly. And that's what we're doing together. And I like to start my times with Jesus by having a light present that reminds me that now the light of the world has come, and that's Jesus. But he says to us, you're the light of the world. And you let your little light shine right where you are. And we do that by being inspired by him. And today, I want to begin, as is often helpful for me, by just letting my mind get still. So breathe in hope and breathe out fear. Remember that God is here, so breathe in truth. And breathe out deception. And today, we see a Jesus that I love, and that's nosy Jesus. That's curious Jesus. There's a story in John 5, our text for today, where he's going to Jerusalem for a festival. So this is not particularly his purpose, this particular story that we read about, but he sees a man at a pool, and the man needs to be healed. The man is an invalid, and he's been this way for a long time. And Jesus asks him a fascinating question. Do you want to be well? Now, why would Jesus ask anybody this question? Of course, anybody would want to be well. Well, we're a little more complicated than that. Even when we're sick, I remember Sigmund Freud used to write about what he called secondary gain, to explain sometimes why people would get sick. A little kid is sick, and then what happens is they don't have to go to school. They get to stay home. They don't have to do homework. And mom shows them lots of sympathy and fixes them their favorite foods. And so even though we think of sickness as a bad thing, there are ways that it can enhance our lives. There are what Freud called secondary gains out of this. And this goes very deeply into human nature and our psychological makeup. And part of why Jesus asked this question is that there'll be ways in which my identity of myself can become, I'm the victim. I'm the one who ought to be sympathized with. If I do not have that, what's my identity anymore? And so I wonder where Jesus would ask you the question today that you do not want to answer. Do you want to be happy in your marriage? Sometimes I just view myself as a victim of a bad marriage. Or do you want to be happy in your singleness? Sometimes I just view myself as a victim of being single. Or do you want to be free of your addiction? Because who would I be if I didn't have that anymore? It's very interesting. In this story, the man does not directly answer Jesus' question. Jesus says, do you want to get well? And he says, I have no one to help me into the pool where it was believed that healing would come. Doesn't say, yes, I want that. And I love this about Jesus. Jesus heals him anyway. Jesus often is way better to us than we deserve or even imagine. What's striking here is this is maybe the least sympathetic of all the people that Jesus ever heals. Jesus comes back to him later on and finds the man in the temple and says, stop sinning. Now, it may be that what's happened is the man returns to the temple courtyards. People would often do this to beg, and is pretending to still be ill, is pretending to still need to beg. That may well be why Jesus says to him, stop sinning. And then this man, instead of turning to Jesus and following Jesus, actually turns Jesus in to the religious leaders, actually sells him out. So the question for today is, where would Jesus like to make you well? Could you have a vision of your life as whole and strong with God? And be honest with him about this and ask Jesus to make you well. And I'll see you tomorrow.